First of all, I want to thank Gary for inviting me to be here. It's an honor, and I love Texas. I love all the people, catching up with old friends, etc. Let me just make sure I got this right before we get going here. Yeah, okay. So we're going to talk about a lot of things, but we're going to also, I guess one of the things we're going to talk about is my book. As most of you know, I released a book about 2 months ago. I brought a bunch of them down here. I'm all sold out. I apologize for that. I could only carry so many. But I do have an order card, which I'm happy to sign. And then if you want to give me your address, I could also sign a book and send it to you in the future. So anyway, here we go. I wrote a book, and it's called The Big Print. What Happened to America and How Sound Money Will Fix It. And the reason I wrote this book is that I feel, okay. The reason I wrote this book is that I feel like, America's broken. Things are dysfunctional. And the underlying cause, I think everyone in this room knows, is that the money is broken. And so that's what's led to all the unhappiness and all the dysfunction. And I was sitting around in early last year and watching a blue-red debate. And it was just maddening how stupid everyone was on both sides, and that they were ignoring the underlying issue. I thought, somebody's got to fix this. Somebody's got to talk about what the underlying issue is. So anyway, that was the genesis of the book, and I wrote it in 6 months. Was done with it in December, issued it in February, and thank God I did, because they're about to print. I didn't want to be late. But let me just kind of walk through the table of contents, give you a general sense of what we cover in the book if you haven't already read it or if you're not aware of it. I start off by there are two parts of the book. First part is the problem, the second part is the solution. And the problem I try to describe in terms that a normie would understand: why things are broken, why their life is hard, why things cost more, why we have inflation. It's not greedy corporations, it's the Federal Reserve. And I walk through just the evidence of the decay that's taking place in America post-World War II. I mean, post-World War II, this is a great country, 1946. And since then, it's been downhill steadily. And I think the underlying cause of that is inflation, and I kind of really dive into inflation, how they've cheated on it, how they've talked, how they don't give honest statistics, et cetera, and how it's gotten progressively worse. And inflation's it's like drug abuse or alcoholism. You got to keep doing more and more of it to keep it going, which is a fundamental problem. I want to stay on the table of contents for now. Then I talk about the history of how we got here, and it's a long history. I mean, the country was founded by smart men who understood sound money. And that's why it's in the Constitution. Of course, we don't follow the Constitution anymore anyway, so it doesn't matter. But, we drifted away from those great ideals that were originally in the Constitution. But having said that, we were on a semi-gold standard, or the gold standard, and then a semi-gold standard for quite some time. And the problem got particularly acute after 1971. And I'm going to go into that and just show you the chart here. So this is America's broken. Okay, this first chart, this shows wealth inequality. Top 1% of the country owns 92% of the wealth. That's just wrong, okay? I'm skipping over some charts, but this next chart, the top chart on this sheet is one of my favorites in the book. And what it shows you is basically how inflation has been persistent for some period of time. But notice, I mean, we generally had inflations around wars because governments print money to conduct war, which is one of the things that Bitcoin will stop. Look at how bad it got after 1971. Just kind of went straight up. And that's really the cause of the problem. The money's no longer sound. I'm not going to go through all the charts in the book. I want to actually just go through the table of contents, hit the high points. But I talked about the history of how we got here. I talk about how it's gotten worse. I talk about 2000 credit management, all the capital management, all the things that blew up that created the problem that we now have. And frankly, the first half of the book is pretty depressing. The Keynesians have led us down this garden path, which is just fundamentally wrong. I mean, they're idiots. But the average person doesn't know that because it's sophisticated. The con that they pulled on everybody is pretty sophisticated. The average person doesn't think about monetary policy. I was writing the book and somebody started reading it. I had an average person read it and they said, "No, what's the Federal Reserve?" And I get it. I mean, most people don't know what the Federal Reserve is. If you don't know what the Federal Reserve is, you don't understand what the problem is. So the first part takes you through all that, and then it's kind of a call to why we're in a really bad place right now. And James Lavish, my partner at Bitcoin Opportunity Fund, talked about that earlier, which is to say we're just in a debt cycle, a doom loop of debt. And so we're kind of at the end of the road. They've kicked the can for 50 years. The can's really heavy, and there's not much more kicking left to be done. As you know, the two things I like to quote a lot. One is Stein's law, which is if something can't go on forever, it'll end. And basically, you can't grow debt faster than GDP, or else you'll run out of runway. And the second thing is Lynn Alden's meme, nothing stops this train. And despite the best efforts of Doge, I think the cancer is too big. I mean, the problem, we're terminal, and it's going to be very hard to fix this without some kind of a monetary reset. Second part of the book is really just the fix to it, and this is the optimistic part of the book. And first, I start by trying to explain why we don't need inflation. This whole notion that we need 2% inflation, it's a lie. It's a complete lie. And why we need deflation, Jeff Booth pointed this out in his brilliant book. We live in a deflationary world. Things should be getting cheaper. If you allocate capital properly, if you balance investments with invest in savings with need for capital, interest rate is the price that balances those two things. And every price in the world should be set by the marketplace, because that's what creates fairness. To have 12 people in a room setting a price is just insane. Our kids will think we were insane. You know, they set the price. They set it at 20% in 1980. It almost bankrupted my father. They set it at 0% in 2008. It made a bunch of quintillionaires silly rich, and is why 1% of the country owns 92% of the wealth, and has robbed that wealth from the working people of this country. And that's what Trump's trying to solve. And God bless him. And I think he's doing all the right things. And having said that, I think even he and Bessent are going to be shocked by just how hard it is. We've got 50 years of cancer here. You can't fix it in a week, a month, maybe even one presidential term. And so, I wish them the best, and I want them to try and fix it, but it's a real serious problem. And the other thing that the study of history shows, the first half of the book talks about this, but the second half does as well, is how when countries get to this problem, it's called a sovereign debt crisis. There's really only one way out, and that's inflation. And so the money is going bad. It's going bad at an increasing rate. And that's why we're all Bitcoiners, because we now have a perfect form of money that cannot be diluted. And as Jesse Myers pointed out, this is a once in humanity kind of event. I mean, we're going to talk about this. There's going to be pre-Bitcoin and post-Bitcoin. That's how big a deal this is. And most people don't even get it. It's stunning. I mean, it's like the fact that I can buy Bitcoin at $85,000, I feel like a kid in a candy store. I'm just trying to figure out, do I really want to sell a kidney? I mean, probably not. but I mean, it's just an unbelievable opportunity. So then the rest of the book is really, I tried to address, and again, remember, I wrote the book for a normie. Some of you will think, a lot of you will know all this stuff, okay? Some of you think it's incredibly simplistic, but, and got my own personal nonsense and stories and history and all that shit in it. But I did that because people don't necessarily read textbooks. People watch reality TV. People read stories. Hey, the Bible's just a bunch of stories. I mean, it's a moral, you guys cutting me off? It's a bunch of stories. And so this is a story. I tried to make it engaging, and that was kind of the objective. But then I go through kind of, why Bitcoin, what Bitcoin is, and you guys all know that, how it fixes it, why there's been skepticism. And, I do the whole explaining why Bitcoin is not a shitcoin. And, we all know, anyone who's been a Bitcoiner for a long time, and I have been since 2014, knows that there are all kinds of things you got to come up with, overcome. Hey, it's Sam Bankman-Fried. Hey, the government's going to kill it. Well, no, they approved the ETF. Hey, there are objections you've got to overcome. And so I try and do that. Then I talk about how it's going to unfold, the likely moves back and forth, and none of us know, but we're doing the best we can. And this is why, and I point out that it's a volatile asset, and this is going to be, you don't go through fourth turnings, you don't go through sovereign debt crises without having serious shit happen. And serious shit means volatility. And that's why my number one rule to everybody who's first getting into it is, one, only put into it what you can stand to have draw down 60% without freaking out. And two, don't lever it, because it's got incredible asymmetric upside. You don't need to use leverage to get rich with this asset. A tenth of a Bitcoin will get you rich. A Bitcoin or more will get you very rich. So just hodl what you got and stay with. So then I talk about the investment implications for traditional assets. I talk about how overvalued stocks are right now. Gosh, we kind of saw a little bit of the impact of that last week. And I talk about, the upside of Bitcoin and just how compelling it is based on, where it's going. And then finally, I try and offer some solutions. I wrote a speech. If I were president, and somebody say, hey, Larry, you're bitching about all this. What would you do? So I wrote, if I were president, here's the speech I would deliver. And the highlights of it are, Bitcoin, silver, and gold would be legal tender. There would be no capital gains taxes on them. Federal Reserve would be shut down, totally closed. There would be no Federal Reserve. and finally, the FDIC would be put out of business. There would be no bank guarantees. No bank would ever get bailed out in the future. So only honest banks who didn't practice excessive fractional lending would be around and would be in the lending business. I think if we did those things, we would restore America to greatness very, very quickly. And that's the other thing. The final thing I would say, this transition is going to suck and it's going to be hard, but we got to keep our eye on the prize, which is if we were to live in a money world, things would be much, much, much better. They really would. We would be doing it efficiently. We wouldn't have all this political dysfunction. We wouldn't have families where, red side of the family hates blue side of the family. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely friggin' ridiculous. This isn't what America was meant to be. This isn't what America's all about. And with sound money, America will be a much better place. So I'll kind of end it on that. Yeah, so that's really kind of the message, and I'm kind of shocked I still have a minute left. So now what I'll try and do is introduce the next speaker. And I want to say, I'm sorry I don't have more books to give out, but I do have this card. Happy to sign these. They make good bookmarks. And if you hit the QR code in the back, you can buy it. It's on Amazon. You can get hard copy, paper copy, Kindle, EPUB, and Walker America, some of you know from Twitter, really fabulous voice. He read it. And it's 12 and a half hours if you listen to it long form. One of my friends down in Naples just told me recently, he says, oh, it won't take me that. I'll listen to it in 6 hours. He listens to stuff at 2x. I'm like, I don't know how anyone listens to stuff at 2x. But apparently some guys are mentally facile enough that they can do it. So I got a bunch of these. I'm happy to sign them. So that's it for the book. And the only other thing I would ask, please, is that if you like it, talk about it, pass it on. The way we get the world to, and my personal goal, my razor for 67-year-old guy, I want to orange pill the entire fucking world. Okay, all right, it's a modest goal, and I want this book to become Thomas Paine's Common Sense. I mean, literally, when I was starting writing the book, I was talking to a woman, and she said to me, Larry, books can change the world. And that got in my shoe. It was like a rock in my shoe, and I had to fucking solve it. I mean, I felt like I've been tapped on the shoulder. You got to write this book. You got to try and change the world. And that's why I did it. So let me move. I am out of time. Let me